So I want to follow up on this idea in Warhammer 40,000 regarding dice pools and quality of dice in the shooting phase. Because while there's the ability to assault and certainly movement is important in 40K, the bulk of the game as it exists right now favors shooting and wants to utilize shooting mechanics on there. And the biggest change in my mind, the shift between editions. If this is your first edition of 40K, it's not as important, this statement, because this, in your gaming DNA, this is all you have. This is all you know. But for those of us who have played 40K in previous editions, enough time has passed that that is irrelevant, but it's a good analogy to kind of see where we are and see where things are going. Games Workshop has sped up the speed of various units. Everything overall is much, much faster in 40K compared to the previous edition. Well, that just means your models get into range quicker. Games Workshop, in an effort to speed up the games and make them more dynamic, has effectively doubled the range potential in terms of movement and shooting and ability. This makes shooting very, very powerful. And this really gives you kind of two options if we're going to look at a shooty-based army. The idea is either I need to increase my guns, big guns on the table, and there is something to be said for that. You know, the Tyrant, his philosophy, it holds true. Big guns never tire. You can have your fancy tactics, you can have your fancy models, you can have your baby titans, you can have your Forge World. You throw enough dice, not actually physically throwing, roll enough dice at something in 40K and it vanishes. And this is a legitimate wargaming tactic. Any wargaming system that utilizes dice, I mean, I utilize this all the time in Battletech. Of course, this big guns never tire. I also like blowing stuff up from that perspective. So understanding that, you either need to leverage enough dice or you need to be able to absorb the dice, meaning have the model mass on there. What you do and how you do it depends on where you are in the moment of your collecting. It depends on the army that you want to play. It depends on the units available in that army. So there's a lot of factors in play. This now leads into this idea of critical mass, critical dice mass in 40K. And we've explored this topic up on the archives in my YouTube channel. I don't know which way you're coming into this podcast, this vlog. I have a playlist called Wargaming Tactics. And the 4 introductory Wargaming Tactic podcasts, we look at examples from 40K, we look at examples from Battletech, we look at examples from Chain of Command, which is a World War II historical game. They all involve dice. And they all involve, 40K included, certain D6 fundamentals on there. So that was a great introduction to understanding this idea of critical mass. So if we think about 40K, and I'm going to kind of summarize critical mass, it goes both ways, giving and receiving. You want to do something in the game. That something could be to shoot at a unit. That something could be to win an assault. You need to have enough dice in that unit. So every unit generates a volume of dice. A good exercise, physically one that I like to do, and I have enough dice being a core innate player, is the attacks, whether they're the assault or shooting. Put the dice next to those units. Bring out your models, put the dice down, or write on paper little tokens, the dice that you can generate. That's the power. In order to make something happen in 40K, first you have to hit, first you have to wound, then there's armor saves. You might have to strip away multiple wounds on there, depending on characters, depending on vehicles and other factors. And then there might be things on your opponent's side to potentially negate those wound removals. So all of a sudden, the dice you generate is very important to be able to do that. On the opposite end, defending, the number of dice that you have, bodies, wounds, physical wounds that you can just absorb that your opponent rolls to either protect other elements of your army or have enough to go back. So we see very much this is a dice-based game on there. And not to mention just to hit, whether it's 3-up or 4-up or other factors in there, you need to have enough dice to hit because the pool is going to get smaller. What you can hit, what you can wound, and what you can do from there. So if we look at shooting, what I want to do my best is, certainly, again, you throw enough dice at something, it disappears. But there's a big difference between strength 3 and strength 6, or strength 4, strength 5 on there. The bigger strength that you can bring, of course, is better. Marine players being mostly strength 4 is really, really good on that. What I'm looking to match up is my higher strength weapons to models that are equal or less, but not numerous, if that kind of makes sense. I should really pull out all my models for this one. Next time around, before I play a game, when I've got my Chaos out, my Cultists out, and my Zerks out, I'll do that as a follow-up, certainly. But on the opposite end, when I have this trash mob, Cultists or Guardsmen, I want my opponent to waste their higher volume 4, 5, 6 strength shots into my Cultists, because you shoot me with anything but a Grot Blaster, you're probably going to wound me. So I want to embrace that by throwing down enough stuff on the table that, yes, I'm going to be pulling off these lower point models. Gaunts are another example, in droves, versus my Zerkers or versus my Tyranid Warriors. Got to preface that because Warriors could be Krons too on there. Well, that might be more Immortals. But the switch between Immortals and Krons, Warriors, the debate continues. Tyranid Warriors or Tyranid Big Bugs on there, I don't want to be eating Strength 5. I don't want to be eating Strength 6 because even if I'm a higher toughness, you're probably still going to wound me. And I don't have the massive wounds for those multi-wound or larger models out there to absorb that. But when I'm throwing down hundreds of Gaunts, it's all good, even though you're going to pretty much auto-wound. I mean, that said, I'm still going to make you roll the dice because it's a Game Workshop game. And even if you forget the rules, 6 is good, 1 is bad, you're going to roll a couple of 1s. A couple of my little guys are going to escape on there. So this shooting matchup in the dice, whether you're shooting or receiving, that's kind of the template that I'm looking at. And of course, in there is terrain and movement and how fast your units can move, how fast my units can move. It's not necessarily clear cut, but this is kind of the dynamic in 40K from that shooting perspective that we're looking at.